Hey, how's it going? My name is JackieFish and welcome back to another Ancient Empires online battle. Today we are fighting a battle taken from a head-to-head that I have recently been playing with, just with a friend, nothing too serious, just kind of in my own spare time. But this is the Battle of Zama. So this is kind of the beginning of the Ancient Empires campaign. It takes place kind of just before that battle happens, and Hannibal and Scipio start off right next to each other to initiate the Battle of Zama and kind of decide the fate of this Punic War. And it's really fun fighting stuff a bit like this out in a head-to-head scenario because it's the campaign, but obviously your opponent gets to take command of the army, and it's just really awesome. So in this battle, obviously Rome is fighting to kind of crush the Carthaginian forces, kill Hannibal, and win the Second Punic War, whereas Carthage is still very much fighting for survival. You know, Roman forces on Carthaginian territory, they want to try their best to kick them out. For the Carthaginian forces, we kind of, you know, are definitely under strength compared to the Roman forces. The Romans are definitely superior, but we do have some pretty deadly elephants that we can bring to bear. These guys are 32 in the unit, obviously very strong and can output so much damage, especially in Ancient Empires, which I think does battles so well, where they try to go ahead and give just like realistic reasoning behind everything that happens in a battle. You know, if a unit runs too fast, it's going to be exhausted. If a unit is surrounded, it's going to break, which is, you know, just a really unique kind of style that I don't feel like a lot of other Total War mods do actually do. So we have the elephants that are going to be very deadly on my side, and I am playing as the Carthaginians, by the way. The Frontline is very different compared to the Romans. You know, we do have some of these Pone Militares, which are, I guess, are like hoplite, Punic hoplite militia. They're not exactly, you know, the strongest in the world, but they'll do their job. We have a lot of Iberian Scutari as well, which are actually okay. These guys are pretty decent. We're not like the best in the world, but they'll do okay. We have some of these other heavy. So this is kind of like one of our strongest part of our forces is going to be our Gallic infantry that we have tier 3. They're going to definitely hold their line and output a decent amount of damage. We then finally have kind of the last, you know, probably our strongest part of the army besides the elephants, and that's going to be these African veterans. They are extremely deadly. They're tanky, and you know, they fought on every single part of the Punic War. So these guys are hardened veterans, and it's gonna, you know, if I look to change the time of history, it's gonna be up to these guys right here. My cavalry is definitely inferior than the Romans as well. We do have some of these kind of light Numidian cavalry. I guess these are the ones that haven't gone over to the Roman side in this battle. And I also have laid a little bit of an ambush. So kind of my battle plan was to shift my formation as far over to this right-hand side as I could to try and entice the Roman cavalry round. And obviously right through this gap that I could then exploit by kind of enveloping them right here. That was kind of the plan, and you'll see if it does plan out. As well as that, we do actually have a bit of impassable terrain right here, which again I'm using. And I just love Ancient Empires when it comes to the battles. I'm not gonna lie, because stuff like this just goes ahead. Like, I feel like there's so much more strategy because units move slower, because you have to kind of march your army most of the time. It just kind of like means that you have to really think about your strategy, and you have to come up with interesting and unique ways. So laying that cavalry ambush, moving my army over to this side, you know, that's all kind of a part of the overall battle, and kind of like it's all a consequence of the way that the battles work in this game. You know, the reason I managed to secure this bit of terrain is because the Roman player can't just run at me, right? He can't just charge at me because his men will be exhausted and he'll be cut down. I believe that an exhausted unit fights 0.2% of their fighting, or like maybe it's like 20% of their overall strength. It's something really bad, meaning that, you know, like even like militia units can take on elite units if they're exhausted and the militia units are fresh. Now, obviously, eventually the fresh units will get exhausted as well, and the balance of power will start to shift. But it's still the ability there. You know, you can come in with some really good shock infantry and try and break out the enemy opponents. For Roman army, they're going to have some of these pretty strong velites on the front line, and obviously these guys are going to be gunning for my elephants in this battle as best as they can. You know, if they can kill the elephants that I have at my disposal, that's a huge amount of my firepower taken out of this battle. And obviously also, you know, having, at least for me, having these guys not wanting to throw their javelins is really good, because it means that I can kind of just keep my elephants in reserve and make the Roman player not use any of his velites, because he's going to want to save them for my elephants, because if he doesn't, then he just loses, really. Then behind that, he has some Principes, so these are going to be the strongest part of the Roman army, besides his Numidian cavalry. Some, veteran heavy infantry, going to be very, very deadly. He also has put these basically tiarii on the far right-hand side. You can see they're kneeling as well, which is, again, another amazing thing about ancient empires. You have these, these elite forces kneeling, resting, and hopefully getting restless and will charge into battle. Over in his center, he has some Stati. I believe he also has some, Securii, or how you pronounce that, on his far right flank. So he's kind of got a mixed army, 3 of these kind of weaker units, then like 3 or 2 Hastati, and then 3 Principes. The 3 Principes are going to be very difficult, but luckily, kind of the way the battle has shaped up, I've managed to tie down, 5 of his units on this side of the battlefield, and it's impassable. You can't climb up this hill, it's just too steep. So because of that, like, I'm kind of in a good situation. The strongest part of his army is over on this flank right now. And obviously he has his cavalry as well, which is going to be very, very scary. These guys are extremely heavily armored, level 2 cavalry. He obviously also has, it's these guys right here, the tier 3 cavalry, the Numidians, the elite Numidian horses, is just going to be so scary. Obviously, historically, the Numidians kind of switched sides for this battle, and it really was kind of one of the downfall. Okay, this was a very interesting move right here. That he actually managed to scout my cavalry. And I didn't want to mention anything in the battle because we were in a voice call and we were talking, and the enemy player managed to scout, or like my cavalry came in view of his horses as he moved them around, and then he said something about his front line, and I immediately moved them back to being hidden to try and avoid him, and he doesn't notice this ambush yet. Luckily for me, he doesn't see this. So let's jump ahead until the battle does go, because he was like, oh, my Principes are this and this. I was like, oh crap, quickly move my cavalry back to being hidden. Hopefully he didn't notice. But yeah, let's jump ahead until the battle does kick off, and we'll see how the Battle of Zama does evolve. Scipio has given the order for his forces to march forward. They're going to be advancing in defensive testudo, so they're going to have a lot of protection from missiles coming in. Luckily, I mainly just have javelins rather than like a lot of archers or slingers. I have 1 unit of slingers and then the rest are just javelins. But a good thing about the Roman formation and being in this defensive kind of setup is the fact that basically every infantry unit has some form of projectile, whether it's just 1 javelin or multiple peeler or whatever. So being in a defensive testudo and advancing is going to be a pretty smart setup. I think everything besides like hoplites have some form of javelins. And you can see my hoplites reforming quickly and preparing to receive the Principe charge. And you need to be kind of careful here because obviously, my hoplites are going to be pretty vulnerable to peeler throw, especially from all of these Principes, which are so heavily armored. So I try and create a bit more interesting kind of battle. I want to pull back my infantry, which is exactly what I'm doing right now, to kind of force his infantry forward. I basically want to try and get this infantry forward and then countercharge it as best as I can so that he doesn't get a chance to throw his peeler. That's kind of the main goal in this setup. I kind of want to keep my hoplites here and then just have my infantry move forward and kind of hit him as he tries to get closer in range of his peeler throw. And you can see he is currently advancing. Scipio is advancing forward the rest of his army. And once again, I just want to try and just cause as much mayhem as possible. Try and disrupt his line. So I'm sending forward one of my lower tier, just Iberian mercenaries. These guys aren't very good, but they can go ahead and hold up and maybe even tire out his Principes. Because obviously, this is the main strength of his battle line. So I really want to try and pin this down as best as I can. And start tiring out his infantry, because if I can exhaust his Principes, that's going to be huge for me. He's going to have to either rest them or just commit them, and that's going to give my hoplites a massive advantage. I also have a very nice position up here, is it? Oh no, I haven't put them up there yet. But in a second, I will put my hoplites up on this impassable terrain right here. Oh, not my hoplites, sorry, my javelins. You can see right there, and then they can start getting some good throws down. I'm not sure if he actually is still in defensive testudo. I don't think he is now because I attacked him. So I think that might bring him out of it, but I'm not actually too sure if he gets a missile block or not. I mean, he has 65 missile block. So he's not in that formation anymore because I attacked him, I guess, and he probably tried to counter charge or something. So these units are a lot more vulnerable to that push. And you can see, like, I'm just kind of like throwing out one unit to try and probe at his defense. And the awesome thing is about this mod is, like, stuff like this is viable. Throwing forward a bunch of crappy units to tire out your opponent will have huge effects. You can see that this unit is currently winded right now. Some javelins coming in because he turned his back to me, but they're just going to mainly bounce off this Testudo. Surprisingly, though, it's doing a lot of damage. Maybe I should have kept on hitting this unit of Principes. But yeah, as you can see, like, I'm getting exhausted faster than he is, but for the most part, you know, that's an entire 2 units of Principes which are getting tired, whereas my hoplites are looking very, very good. Over on this side, I'm going to throw a pretty deadly, you know, volley of javelins. I'm going to take down a few of these, you know, Hastati on the advance. Not really too many. And then as soon as I throw both my javelins, I'm going to countercharge him because I really don't want him to un-Testudo and throw his javelins. So, again, this has gone so well for me on the front lines. I managed to kind of catch him with his pants down. Because, you know, none of these Romans have thrown their Pila yet, which is absolutely huge for any battle against the Romans. And I've managed to get my, you know, my fairly lightly armoured but extremely skilled Gallic allied infantry into combat against kind of some of his weaker Hastati units. Now the Numidian cavalry is making its move and my ambush is about to be fired off. Hopefully this will be successful. You can see he's going to try and push all the way around and boom, just like that, my cavalry comes flying down the hill and Hannibal's ambush works so perfectly. I get such a great charge right there, basically slaughtering an entire unit of Numidian horses, and I go ahead and pounce the rest of my cavalry. Moving in, Hannibal himself is going to be advancing forward. And yeah, just trying to chase down as much horse as I can. I get another great charge off there with my lightly armored Numidians, but we are going to be engaging the heavy cavalry of the Romans, which isn't necessarily going to be as perfect, where Hannibal is chasing off as fast as he can. The rest of the Numidian cavalry has come back from that initial skirmish, and he is going to be pursuing me. I'm going to quickly also be trying to commit a unit of my veterans over to this battle. You can see for the most part, battle lines have fully committed. My African veterans are now stuck in. And this is kind of a great one, you know, going up as Sirikari. God, I can't even pronounce that. I don't know why I can't pronounce that word. But the cohorts going up against these guys, this is kind of like the weakest part of the Roman army for sure. So going up against them with my African veterans, we should basically take them down. And as you can see, I'm bringing javelins around the side. Pretty nicely. Scipio's also taken a little bit of damage, you know, from missile fire and stuff. And wow, Scipio's bodyguard unit is extremely light. Why is this not? Is Hannibal's this light? I actually don't know. No, Hannibal's is kind of this light. But this is kind of comes one of the biggest mistakes in this battle. My opponent managed to go ahead and take out his Numidian cavalry from this engagement. And instead of using Hannibal to chase down these horses, I kind of let these Numidians throw their javelins, assuming that they wouldn't do anything too crazy. And my god, they melt. They absolutely melt Hannibal right here, which is just so bad for me because, you know, regardless of whether he dies or not, getting his bodyguard really low is going to hugely impact the battle. I definitely should have just brought Hannibal out, taken a few casualties as I try and pull out of the battle. You know, I am just fighting kind of lightly armored Numidians, so it's not too bad. But instead, I kind of let this cavalry unit throw their 3-4 javelins, and Hannibal is just going to go ahead, basically just get slaughtered here by the missile fire. And what went from like an amazing cavalry strike now has kind of turned into a, you know, kind of an even fight because I'm letting these javelins throw and whittle down Hannibal's numbers. I've managed to luckily defeat this unit over there, the one that came back, which is going to free up an entire unit of horses for me to then come and support Hannibal, but he's already down to 60. He's almost lost half of his bodyguard unit. And now this, you know, Numidian cavalry charge is going to be deadly as it comes in on Hannibal. And as you can see, he took a lot of damage from that. I try and pop a rally, but his numbers are going down. My cavalry is trying to reinforce, but it's not looking good. I luckily managed to get a unit of my African veterans to engage one of his heavier horses, so that this unit could maybe come out elsewhere. I think it would have been a really good idea for me, instead of trying to focus so heavily on winning the cavalry fight in its entirety. There you go, Hannibal is broken right there and flees the battle. The coward Hannibal is broken. Which was a real big blow for me. Losing my general is going to obviously affect the melee really, really, yeah, a lot. Speaking of which, the melee is going on in full force right now. You can see the infantry is engaged. I've managed to, like, really disrupt the Roman line on this right flank. I've managed to engage and kind of tire a lot of his more elite units. And my hoplites are fresh right now. So as soon as, like, kind of these weaker units break, he's going to have to then push on my hoplites, which are, you know, very, very fresh and basically ready for combat. I'm about to receive an entire peeler throw here, though, I think in a second, when these guys form up a little bit. Yeah, that's going to be pretty deadly. Going in, disrupting my front line pretty heavily. Luckily, I only lost a couple men from that, which wasn't too bad. But it's managed to make, you know, holes in my hoplite wall, which is going to be unfortunate for me when I'm trying to hold that line as effectively. But, you know, hoplites are meant to hold, so that's kind of the most important thing. My elephants have completely shifted over here. I want, like, to try my best to have such a crucial victory, you know, in this cavalry department. Because if the cavalry gets, you know, lost, then, you know, I've already lost Hannibal. If I lose a cavalry fight now, it's going to be basically game over. However, I don't really leave anything back here to screen. I really should have had some of these skirmishes here to stop the Roman player from moving up his you know, kind of his skirmishes to attack me. I really needed a screen here, and I think that's something I've definitely learned here when using elephants, is I needed, like, something, but basically just here to stop the javelins from getting into range, because even though the elephants have come in and they're doing an amazing amount of damage to these horses, they're cutting them down, I'm now in range of these javelins, and even though I'm throwing my African veterans over, I'm losing elephants extremely quickly here. So, you know, the elephants are a glass cannon at the end of the day when it comes to it. You know, I'm losing so many of my elephants, and even though I managed to repel this, you know, I'm still taking heavy damage. I did manage to break this unit of Numidians, though, which is very good. The tier 3 cavalry is huge, and now hopefully I can finish off these other guys. My African veterans are going to be coming around. I'm also using the channels pretty effectively to try and envelop his infantry. I wanted to put a lot of pressure on this left flank, because this is not where his, you know, this isn't where his Tiarii is. This isn't where his Principes are. This is kind of where the Roman flank is very weak, is on this left-hand side, or on his right-hand side. So I wanted to try and use that as effectively as I could to try and push the battle in my favour. And there you go. You can see we managed to break the Roman cavalry, besides Scipio himself. Which is going to be huge. We do also have, you know, some Numidians left, and I also have the elephants. However, it's very difficult for me to use these elephants because of all of this. You know, there's a lot of javelins sitting around, and I need to be very, very careful. And I think one of the key things in ancient empires is patience. You can't commit stuff too early. You know, you have to bide your time. The battles go on for a fair amount of time, you know, until mainly units get exhausted. You can see they're very tired. So you just have to be patient. You just have to wait for stuff to happen. And I'm going to become kind of a little bit impatient right now. They get a good charge off onto my Numidian cavalry. And Scipio is going to be probably, you know, enough to break that. And I kind of see this happening. I panic and I'm like, oh no, my cavalry is you're going to break. So I have to commit my elephants now. And I think right here is, again, a big turning point. Just like when Hannibal got killed in that cavalry engagement, I commit my elephants, and they're going to get basically minced by this unit of javelins. You know, I kind of saw the chance of maybe killing Scipio here and you know, balancing the battle, and that's going to cost me my elephants. Realistically, I should have just kept them in reserve, you know, kept these 3 units basically doing nothing, because these 3 units are waiting for my elephants to be committed somewhere. What I could have done is I could have just let my cavalry and my elephants chill here for a little while, get their energy back, basically take these 3 units out of the game, take his general out of the game because he can't commit his general around this flank, and just let my left flank slowly win, because my left flank is winning. My center is getting trashed by the, you know, elite Triarii and Principes. That doesn't really stand a chance, but I've got some hoplites here, and the hoplites are a unit that can hold for a long time. So I think realistically I should have just let this flank hold and just bid my time. You know, I didn't have to commit my elephants that early. I didn't have to advance my Numidians. I kind of just got a bit like, damn, I'm going to lose this infantry fight. I need to do something soon. And realistically, I didn't. You know, I just had to go ahead and, you know, kind of bide my time on this flank, keep them a little bit busy. Luckily, my Numidian cavalry does come back from routing, so I get a nice charge off onto these javelins. But at this point, it's not that important, you know. Like, just looking back on it, I really should have just waited here. Would have, you know, I would have taken a lot less casualties in this battle if I did. Just because, you know, enveloping these units, as soon as they get exhausted, they're going to get cut down very nicely. I did manage to break that unit of javelins, and I managed to push forward, but I ended up losing my cavalry once again. And, you know, like, I've got my African veterans here as well, so, you know, it's kind of my elite force who would have ended up winning this battle. Probably by themselves. So balance of power isn't looking good, but like, do keep in mind that I feel like things can change. You know, as long as my center holds, which is doing a good job of right now. As long as his center holds, then I definitely still have a chance. Even though Hannibal has routed, even though I've lost my elephants, even though I've lost my cavalry, I've managed to knock out the Roman cavalry, which is kind of a good trade-off, you know, considering the Roman cavalry was very much superior in this battle. You know, and I am winning this left flank. I've got my African veterans against his, you know, weaker, velites. I'm going to win that fight eventually. I've managed to get, you know, envelopments on all of his Scutari. So it's mainly just a matter of time until I can break this flank. But the thing is, will my center hold? You can see one of my units of the light infantry from Iberia are now going to be breaking and routing from the field. But luckily, the Romans actually fall back. I think they fall back to get some energy back because they're very tired. However, that buys me so much time. It allows me to basically fill the gap that the Roman player had left. And allow me to form up a hoplite wall with my with these guys. I don't believe these guys are actually in a hoplite wall in this battle, because I moved them out. This one on the far right is in a hoplite wall, but these guys aren't. So it basically allowed me to pull out this unit and plug this gap once again. You know, it's definitely a decent move though by the Roman player to bring out his infantry to try and get some energy back, because as we said at the beginning of a battle, units fight so poorly when they're tired. So bringing this unit out, you know, it will win against me if it just kind of gets its energy back. But it did allow me to kind of form a hoplite wall and kind of plug the gap. You know, if he was to come in with all of these velites, he could have quite easily have overwhelmed me in that gap. And there you go, look at that, a huge break on the left flank. Hannibal's army, it is extremely veteranized and it is ready to win this battle right here. Winning this side has been huge. It's now freed up 2 units of my javelins and a unit of my African veterans. One of my other African veterans has moved up forward onto against his Tiarii. So this fight right here will be a proper slog to the death. But as you can see, I've managed to, like, you know, basically bring over a large amount of men. Like 400 men have now been able to break through, and, you know, my opponent is basically just, you know, having to commit these kind of low velites to this fight. And it's allowing me to kind of abuse the gaps. You can see I've got a unit of African veterans ready to pierce through this battle line right here. I've got velites ready to support, and I'm looking to just envelop. I want to wrap up this flank as quickly as I can. So you can see the African veterans are running through this position right now. Really, really fast. I want to envelop this unit of infantry. Because again, if I can free up more men, that's going to be so huge. Scipio himself is going to have to commit to the battle, because my front line is holding right now. You know, it's not going to win, but it's holding, and that's the most important thing here. Both sides are exhausted, so we're not really doing a lot of damage. And that's why it's so effective in this game. Scipio does do a great charge there against my velites. That's why I was saying it's so effective in this mod to have a line of reserves. Because if you can quickly put in a tier 3 fresh infantry unit going up against the exhausted Principes, you would slaughter them in seconds. Like, you would just shock in, throw your javelins, and then get stuck in. And you've got a fresh unit of, like, elite infantry going up against exhausted elite infantry. You'll just break them. You'll rip through them very quickly, because I'm not sure if it shows it, but the stats are, like, extremely hampered. I'm not sure if... I think it just shows morale, but, like, overall, yeah, I think their stats are normal when it comes to melee offense and defense, but... yeah, I think they fight a lot worse. They're, like, hardly doing any damage to one another right there, because they're just so tired. Another amazing charge there by Scipio coming in, managing to rout more of my flanks. So the velites are struggling, and I really, really need this unit to break right now, because Scipio is just coming in, breaking more of my battle line. Yeah, killing all of my Libyan javelin men, which, I mean, you can't really expect them to hold, right? And yeah, I think this flank here, even though it's going really well for me, even though I am breaking a large portion of his forces on this flank, and the center is going okay for me. Like, they're holding, they're biding me time. Having Scipio still alive is just huge. I feel like if Scipio wasn't alive and couldn't rear charge me, then I'd be in a much better situation right now. But there you go. Another unit has now broken. Scipio comes flying in, though, onto one of my breaking units. I quickly try and turn my tier 3 infantry around. You can see they managed to rack up 129 kills as well. So yeah, I've managed to kind of break this up and, you know, kind of form up, but having that cavalry unit around is so big. However, all it takes is for Scipio to commit himself and get tied down against my African veterans, and he could die. You know, he's committing right here, which is such a risky maneuver against my African veterans. Something to note in Ancient Empires is kind of like the weak units will break to this. Like, weak units are weak, but elite units are elite. I think that's kind of a big definition. Like, elite units will hold the line. You know, they are battle hardened. They've been in this situation many times. And, you know, they will hold. So, like, rear charging elite units isn't kind of what you want to do in Ancient Empires. You want to be trying to break the weaker units and then dealing with the more elite ones later on, because the elite units will hold you down. They'll tie you up. They'll exhaust you. So you kind of want to avoid that as much as possible. And there you go, another big break. And that's allowing me to push more of my African veterans. However, my veterans on the left-hand side do break. Scipio is going to come in once more for a rear charge against my hoplites. And that's going to basically be all she wrote for this battle. That's going to go ahead and break a large portion of my line. My hoplites are going to start to fall. But my hoplites did do a pretty good job at holding up a large portion of the Roman army right here. It's 3 units on one of mine, which really helped out. But as you can see, the rest of the Roman army is coming crashing around my left-hand side. Scipio coming in. Man, Scipio is so low right now, down to 27 men. You know, he's down to 24 now. He could quite easily have died right there. And there you go. The rest of my hoplites start to break. More cavalry charges coming in. But holy crap, that was such a close battle in the end. Literally, if I would have made a few better plays, if I was a little less impatient with my elephants, committing them towards the end of the battle, if I didn't commit that unit of that spare unit of the Numidian horses, maybe if I would have, you know, not lost Hannibal, which was the biggest problem, things would have been very, very different, I think, yeah. Because I managed, with that little ambush, I managed to completely surprise the Roman player and basically nullify his superior cavalry advantage right there, which was, I think, pretty huge in the battle. And I also managed to hold the line against the Roman infantry as well. That right flank, which really contained the majority of his elite forces, got pinned down, and it was a very, very close battle in the end. And you can really see the kind of the strength of my army was in these African veterans. And my elephants even did do pretty decently in the end, which I'm pretty happy with. But Scipio racking up 400 kills, that was kind of my that was kind of my downfall right there. You know, Scipio being alive towards the end of the battle, or having the ability to rear charge me, was huge. I should have just waited with my horses as kind of like a fear factor. You know, if Scipio wants to try and outflank me, he has to go through my horses and get close to my infantry. So that was a really good battle though, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more battles from this head-to-head I'm playing with a friend, then let me know. If I get any good ones like this, I'll be more than happy to upload the battle replay if that's what you guys want to see. So make sure to drop a like and a comment down below if you did, and let's try and get 300 likes on this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.